All right. And whale, hello there, everyone, and welcome to yet another week of CCA League action and also another week of the podcast as well, of course, too. Um, I'm here joined tonight with my lovely co-host, Krona. And Krona, I just want to ask you, it's been a moment, too, since we've both been here together. How are you
Has
doing
been, yeah.
lately?
I am living the dream, as any WPI student will tell you. But no, it's been nice. Last half of my last semester, so very much glad to almost be there. And thank God the weather is getting good finally. Those winter months in these northern states are just miserable. But yeah, no, I've been good. What about yourself, Oma?
No, I relate on the weather note. I'm around kind of the Chicago area, and we had like a really warm weekend where I could go out in like shorts and a t-shirt and be chilling. It was great. And then for some reason it snowed today. And I'm like, why is it snowing today? Yesterday I was outside in shorts and a t-shirt. So that's been fun. Not exactly what you would expect necessarily, to be perfectly honest, but um, yeah, I feel the weather. It is weathering outside. It is March, to be fair, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's been a whole thing. And just as things have been a little bit crazy in real life for multiple reasons, let's be honest, um, things have also been a little. I don't know. There's been some shenanigans afoot in the CCA and Collegiate Splatoon world that I'm sure we'll be getting into a little bit here. Um,
You sound like an upset substitute teacher with the word shenanigans.
Shenanigans. I love the word shenanigans. I love shenaniganry. Another banger I got is shebangle.
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 That is not an SAT word.
That is an SAT. Well, it's an ACT word
No,
actually. It's an ACT word. That would explain it.
yeah, probably.
Mm, yeah.
Were you an ACT or an SAT kid?
I took both, but I was legally required to take the SAT.
Uh,
Yeah.
ACT all the way. Don't like the English sections.
Mhm.
Math, that's my game.
I killed it with the English section personally on my ACT and also the essay. I got like almost a perfect essay score. Math, I'm actually really good at math. I bombed it. I did horrible. Like we're talking like if you don't really care about math at high school, you did better than I did on that math portion. SAT I actually did pretty well though. I was happy with my scores there. But yeah, when I was actually submitting stuff to schools, they were seeing the SAT. Needless to say, we don't talk about my ACTs.
Well, I'm sure everyone is here for a lovely discussion on how to, get good standardized testing scores for college. But I think we should give the people what they come here for, Oma.
No, we absolutely should. And I think, it wouldn't hurt to do a little bit of a recap of some of the action over the past week that we've seen, both from a little bit of week 4 and also both week 3. So I'll go ahead and get us kickstarted there if you think that sounds all right, Krona.
By all means, you have the floor.
All right, so let's do it. Starting off with Division 1, Death Roll had a 4-0 game against Central Michigan, which, pretty good on their part. Death Roll has been tearing up the competition so far, being specifically the second competitor they've played so far this season due to some kind of unfortunate rescheduled timings. But needless to say, last circuit we saw them have a really strong, really good run in our finals event. And they're definitely bringing that energy into the CCA season and taking on what are tough opponents such as Central Michigan. Central Michigan so far is actually 1-3 so far this league season. But despite that, they are a very strong, well-rounded group of players. Once again, this is their first season, brand new team to the CCA League. And even though their playoff dreams may be dashed, I think we still may see them pull off one last win as they have had a lot of close games so far. So I'm looking forward to see what both of those teams are pulling off as we move forward. Do you have any thoughts on that particular match, Krona? Otherwise, I think I may move on.
I mean, just that Death Roll continues to be quite the formidable force in this kind of last year collegiate play. They've been here forever. I think dating back to season 3 or season 2, one of those. But they have really kind of stepped into their own this past academic year, and they're definitely bulldozing their way to a Division One playoff run. So, fantastic to see from them. Central Michigan, this first time here, they have some really tough opponents and such. But again, kind of getting a taste of the waters in collegiate is never a bad thing, and they're still putting up some great fights against these other teams.
Absolutely. Another set I wanted to highlight from this past week is Division II's Towson Tiger Sharks, where they went 4-1 against the Red Embers. And for those of you who have been keeping up with Division II, Red Embers has, by quite a large margin, been one of the strongest teams in that division, particularly in their group as well.
Go figure.
Go figure. They were a previous Division I team. They had a few shakeups on their roster, kind of partly leading to that Division II sort of seeding, but needless to say, they've still been tearing up the competition. However, they found themselves teared up a little bit by Tiger Sharks this past week, who's actually the second running up team in their group, just below them. And so far, Towson Tiger Sharks actually hasn't dropped a set themselves yet either, so this was a pretty intense set, all things considered, as you had two teams going roughly 3-0 into each other for this week. But needless to say, Red Embers still has a lot of strong wins behind them against teams such as Danger and Friends, Surging Sea, and EA UCD Splatoon White. So despite all that, I think we will still see a strong turnout from both teams. But that's going to be something we may come back to a little bit later as we talk about some matches we want to look forward to, as there is a small opening where we could see not necessarily a three-way tie, but something reminiscent of one, as playoff dreams may or may not get dashed. But yeah, any thoughts yourself, Krona?
All that I want to say is it's just fantastic to see Towson Tigerfish kind of stepping into their own. I'm sure you're aware of the fun statistic about Towson that we previously featured on the Squid Scholar Showdown, right, Oma?
Oh yes, yeah.
They are the best 0-5 team in CCA history, only having a game difference of -8 within Season 5 Division 2, taking all their opponents to a Game 6 at least that season. So, again, it's really good to see them kind of stepping in their own this academic year. They've had some fantastic circuit results in Division 2, and they're very much one of those borderline, too good for the Division 2 teams, kind of bottom of the pack Division 1. So they're really benefiting here from our lower capacity Division 1, Division 2, and it's fantastic to see them try to kind of punch above their weight here with a great win over Red Embers, and continuing here being in second place for their group with hopefully a promising playoff run.
Agreed. Now, I know you have some stuff you want to talk about too. Do you mind going over some of your own picks from the past week?
Oh, of course. And I think there's no better place to start this discussion than both of our alma maters at this point, with WPI Kenza Grisco Workers and We Aquatic Little Creatures. So this is the second time that these two universities have actually played together. And I'm sure you remember the first time, considering both of us were in that match, right, Oma?
Yeah, no, that is true.
Yeah. That was back in Season 3. I think it was Week 2 in Division 2 Group A. You guys won 4-1, I remember.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was back with POW 3.0, our kind of a little bit of a resurgence team we had going on for a little bit there of our older Purdue squad. That was fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but yeah, this is a long awaited rematch, with kind of both teams kind of coming into this with some rough starts to the season, with both of them having lost to DPU's Chicago Squid Hole 3-4. So WPI was able to win this match 4-2, and is a huge morale boost to them, which are honestly probably going to need, as they have kind of a rough schedule ahead with HLG Blue and Cream Corn awaiting them, which are second and third, I believe, in the group right And on the other hand, while they're technically not in the running yet, this loss is kind of puts Walk very much in a do or die position where they really need to kind of continue and to start kind of getting a lot more momentum in these matches if they have any hopes of a playoff run. So yeah, I mean, Division 3 has been fantastic to watch so far as well. Again, I definitely think it's been benefiting from the smaller size. But any comments on this match or anything in Div 3, Oma?
I mean, it's definitely pretty crazy to see kind of the reverse situation almost happen here from a few years ago, right? But I mean, the groups of people have to a certain extent changed so much too, either if it's people growing or people just having almost kind of successors come, and that's largely what We Aquatic Little Creatures has become. And it's really cool to see a lot of the growth with some of those players as well. You have a Pisto who has had a really large impact outside of even Collegiate, for instance, from Walk, and quite a few of the other players also like to get involved in the community pretty heavily. So I think it's really good to see stuff like that. And even though it did end up in a loss for them, I think they do have some stuff to learn from it. And ideally, moving forward, they can iron out some of those kinks they've been running into.
You're huffing so much Purdue copium right now.
I am. Purdue also won our March Madness bracket today, or our match today. So, you know, I have to.
Fair enough, fair enough. I can't fault you there. But let's move on to Division 4, where I want to talk about a very orange-centric match between the RET Orange Kois and Splat Scad Orange. I wanted to highlight this match for a few reasons. The first being that orange is my favorite color, so I feel obligated from that front. But also just to talk about what a fantastic and pivotal match this was. So we have two potential playoff candidates duking it out here in Division 4 Group 4, with RET Orange Kois winning over Splat Scat Orange in a Game 7 nonetheless. RET now stands as the only undefeated team in the full group. And despite this loss, honestly, this is still an excellent position for Splat Scat Orange to be in. Both only netting a game differential of -1 from the week, which is really helpful for tiebreaker situations. But also, looking ahead their schedule, the remaining matches are the other teams that the other teams in the group that RET Orange Kois have already won against pretty handily. So on paper, Splat Scad should have a pretty chill rest of the regular season and hopefully try to get into playoffs as either that second or even first seed, depending on some shenanigans from the RET. Yeah, any comments there? I mean, those RET and Splat Scad have been here forever, and they've been some fantastic showings throughout these previous academic years.
No, yeah, I completely agree there. I think the coincidence there with the colors is a bit funny. I know that earlier on, just as a quick tangent, we kind of had a little bit of a quote-unquote leak happen with our divisions, where we had everything sorted by colors. So just seeing matchups like that actually come to fruition, I think, is always really fun. But Orange Kois has been making quite a big splash outside of CCA itself too, along with many of the other RET teams. And I know that Splat Scad, their sister teams, also appear quite frequently as well in outside events. So being able to see some of that kind of culminate and some of those lessons that were learned in other tournaments be applied into a CCA League match is always really fun. And yeah, I think, I don't know, it's all fun stuff around, and seeing a close match like that too is also crazy.
You read my mind, OmaZen.
Yeah.
RET has been one of those consistent schools that have had teams participate in SOS or from the Cup. And SCAD is a little bit more rare, but they're very frequent in some of the other collegiate events, such as CSCs and such, too. But again, great stuff from them. Both these teams are doing fantastic, and hopefully they have both great playoff runs. So yeah, that's all the matches we really wanted to recap. Some great stuff coming out from Week 3 and some Week 4 matches that Oma snuck in. But we also wanted to quickly touch upon some fantasy stuff. Nito has been doing a fantastic job getting that all consistently pumped out and such. For Week 3, the current leaderboard is Violet, Snow, Kamakira, Complainants, and Never Lucky. You can find the updated scores, if I can copy this link correctly, in the chats. Unfortunately, Oma does not have picks himself to compare to, because if he did, I would probably be beating you, because I'm like 9th. It could be doing with some other teams that actually, some of the teams on my list would actually schedule and play their matches, but I won't point fingers.
Yeah, I mean, last season, all the way back in the spring last year, I did actually remember to make a fantasy. I think that was the first time I actually ever did it. And I actually performed pretty well in the main season. It was something that people were constantly poking fun at me about, like, dude, like you just casually rolled up and crushed a lot of us. And I think once everything was said and done, I actually did drop a little bit, but early season 5, I was popping off. Unfortunately, I forgot this time because life gets busy, but
SMH.
SMH,
Fair
true.
enough. We'll see if there's any special playoff fantasy that's been done these previous semesters. But I can't speculate on that. That's just a comment. But yeah, fantasy is going along steadily as well. I think it's about time you also kind of look ahead to some of these week 4 matches because we're starting to get to the point where a lot of the standings are shaping up. And we can actually start to talk about a lot of these individual impacts matches are having. So I kind of want to start us off with talking about Division 1. So we have a match between UC San Diego Esports Gold and University of Central Florida Knights upcoming this week. While currently 2-0 in their group, UCSD has had has kind of had a shaky season so far, having to clutch 2 game 7s to kind of get this results. So they have 1 week before the infamous UCSD versus PSU match that always happens every single season, no doubt. Which is definitely going to be kind of their do or die situation for if they want to come out of this group undefeated. So they kind of need all the strength they can muster, which kind of leads to this forthcoming match being kind of troublesome because UCF Knights just have this long reputation of kind of punishing these teams that just are not fully prepared for their typical Central Florida bullshittery. So honestly, if there's any team in this group that can pull the upset and to kind of force USCD to kind of go into this PSU match kind of shaken, it would be this team. So, despite the fact that Knights, I believe, are 0-3 currently, they can still very much do some damage here and shake up their group standings. Any thoughts here, Oma?
When it comes to Esports Gold and Knights, I mean, that's very much a clash of the titans. I mean, we saw Knights go absolutely ham in circuit. Gold also going ham in circuit as well. And I think a lot of the lessons learned there are just going to, much like a lot of other teams who played in both events, it's just going to continue to kind of compound onto each other, where it's like you thought the last explosion was big from last match. Well, this one's going to be even bigger, and it's just going to be a competition between who can pull off the bigger one. So, I mean, much like many Div 1 matches, and of course others, it's always really fun to see what each team pulls off against the other.
Yeah, obviously, of course. Do you want to take Division 2?
Yeah, I can. So, following up on our recap, that was technically from this past week. We just had a little bit of an early match come in. For our week 5, we're going to be seeing Red Embers go against Smash Brothers. And this is where that earlier comment from me about some playoff dreams potentially maybe being at risk of getting squashed are at risk. So Red Embers is currently 3-1, and Smash Brothers on the other end of things is currently 2 with just really only 2 matches played at all so far, both of which they won. And going into next week, where they will have to play their match as they use their reschedule, someone use a reschedule on them, it's going to get potentially really dicey as both teams have really strong rosters. And we're at a point where there could be a 3-way tie of sorts as the rest of their group has mostly sorted themselves out. Red Embers, Smash Brothers, and House and Tire Sharks pretty much being on the top. So it's going to come down to if Smash Brothers can come through and get those additional 3 wins or even 2 wins, just get enough of an upset there where they come out on top, or if Red Embers is able to just really pull through and get this final win in order to lock themselves in for playoffs. So it's really tight, and this is probably one of the most interesting groups that we're seeing right now overall in CCA.
Yeah, totally. And you know who they're actually facing this week, too?
Oh, who are they?
They're playing Towson.
Oh, yeah, and there
which is
you
going to
go.
be,
Yeah.
again, that's another big one, too. If they can get a win off Towson, there you go. That's a circle of suck forming there. But you're totally right. It's been fantastic to watch this group develop. some great teams, some great new teams and such. So very entertaining to see Smash Brothers and all these other great teams go at it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Division 3 with Grab and Go and Long Beach Gold. So bouncing back from two kind of rough Game 7 losses, Long Beach Gold really needs a huge win to mount a comeback in order to even have a playoff dream this season. And honestly, who's better? Who's a better win than the current front runner of the group, right? Grab and Go has not been infallible this season so far, giving up a few games here and there to the teams while still being undefeated. So the question really remains, can Long Beach Gold be able to cook this crab? We'll have to see.
We will. And if you don't mind, Krona, I'm just going to take us right into our final upcoming match here. Particularly a Division 8 one that I found to be pretty noteworthy. A quick side note, so many teams have used like pretty much every single reschedule they can, and you know what? That's more than fair. But it's gotten to the point where it's kind of hard to even tell in a lot of groups what's actually going to happen by the end of week 5. So this was another one that was sort of similar to Red Ember's situation that I thought was worth mentioning. So we have Rising Moon in Division 8 going up against Jelly Nose Calamari. And why this is kind of important is Purdue University Fort Wayne's Rising Moon is currently leading second in Division 8 Group 4 with 2 wins and a loss under their belt. However, with 2 of the other 5 teams in their group only having 1 match played so far, we may see some surprise upsets to come this season. So Fort Wayne, having played overall the most games relatively compared to most of their competitors and having also won the most, is really kind of like probed here to try to just come through, right, and get that lock for playoffs. So I'm interested to see what they can pull off. They did get a notable win over Fire Lemonade, who was going to be a potential contender to knock them out based on how things have been seeded so far. They also got a solid win over USF White as well. So their playoff dreams are still completely attainable. It's just going to come down to if we see some clutch set wins come through or not. And that wraps up our recap.
Just wanted an excuse to talk about Purdue again, didn't you?
Well,
You went down all the way to Div 8 to talk about Purdue again, didn't you?
Well, okay. Purdue Fort Wayne is not Purdue. The Purdue University West Lafayette is the main campus. Fort Wayne is a satellite school, and it's a perfectly fine school.
It has Purdue in the name.
It does have Purdue in the name.
Purdue in the name.
It's just really interesting to me because they've actually had a small club scene there for several years. It's almost actually roughly as old as the main campuses. But they... What am I getting at? They only recently actually started competing in CCA, at least relatively. So,
I think this is their first year.
I'm pretty sure this was too. Yeah, they started in circuit, and like I don't think many people realized that they actually started playing. But like when I picked up on that, I'm like, oh my gosh, they got a team together. This is so cool because like they would sometimes actually interact with us. Like if we would have a virtual club meeting, they would pop in and say hi sometimes. So,
yeah.
I think that's really cool, and I'm happy for them, and kind of just wish the best. But yeah, I'm definitely appeasing the Purdue name a little bit there. You're not wrong.
Well,
I won't deny.
Do you want to appease the Purdue name even more and talk about another iteration of an event that they've previously won?
Yeah, I can. Particularly the one that I won. Not too long. I guess so long ago now, huh? It's been nearly 2 years.
2 years, right?
Yeah. That's crazy. I have the medal over there still, even too. But yeah, to get to the point,
audience.
Yeah, CCA is coming back for Riptide at Riptide 2025. It's going to be the same good old Collegiate 4v4 cruise event that you all know and love from the past couple of years. And it's once again going to be at the lovely Sandusky, Ohio, Kalahari Resort. This is going to be happening on Saturday, September 6th, tentatively in the evening, or at least later in the day. And we're looking forward to having you all. You can find information on how to apply your team and enter at the Riptide links that have been shared on social media earlier, but you can also find them here in the CCA Discord server, where our lovely TA Mizuno has shared some information. So feel free to take a look at all that if you plan on competing, and we hope to see you there.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been there myself, but it always seems like a fantastic opportunity to get a lot of the collegiate folks together at, the largest Western land for Splatoon and such.
No, agreed. It's always been a fun time. I got the chance to compete the past 2 years. Unfortunately, I don't have the,
No longer eligible.
I'm no longer current student right now. I guess if I were to become a master's student, maybe that would be on the table, right? But not yet. Not yet.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's it, and I think it's time, right, Oma?
Yeah, I think it's time that we bring on a new guest here, particularly someone that many of you have known for quite a long time, and asked the question, or is one of the people that asked the question, who is really eligible for low ink? Let's go ahead and bring on the one and only Popgun from IPL here. And it's
Welcome.
great to have you, Popgun. How are you
Well,
today?
hello there. Sorry, I was just kind of listening into the actual Twitch broadcast, and when I heard two voices in my ear, I got a little confused. Hello, Popgun, representing IPL, graduate of Western Kentucky University, class of 2013. Gosh, 12 years ago. Started off computer science major, switched my sophomore year to sport management. Actually found a job within that degree that I've been working at for the past 10 years. Life has been good. Could I have done it without a college degree? It turns out, yes. Yes, I could have. Absolutely. But I got a very expensive piece of paper that I like to hang up in my office at work, so I got something out of it. Also, the Riptide, I'm super excited to watch the Big Fat Sea Cows 3-0 somebody at 1 in the morning in grand finals of that event. It's going to be awesome.
I mean, the semis are always the most entertaining. Golden Barracudas and Champlain was fantastic from a spectator point of view last year. Right, Oma?
Yeah, I got the chance to see that all in person too, being a spectator and all. And I also did get the chance to compete in our side event last year as well, which is quite a blast. And seeing, there were quite a few sort of surprising upsets, things you wouldn't necessarily expect to happen. It did all ultimately culminate in the Big Fat Sea Cows taking away the win, but they were surprisingly close matches for what they were, and I think that just goes to show what lands can sometimes bring to the table.
Just seeing all the college teams there specifically was cool to see. You don't see that at any other Splatoon event, period. And the fact that there is a one centralized in-person college championship, which is essentially what it should become if it isn't that already, is a cool thing to see. Now, when do the Big Fat Sea Cows age out and become ineligible? That's the question for parity's sake, but until then...
I think most of them are
Still
juniors
cool.
right now, if I remember. They've been here since season 2, so they're getting there.
Do they get that COVID year of eligibility? Can they get to apply for a medical red shirt? Are they just going to be around for 7 years?
No.
Keep playing forever.
We should consider that. I think it would be funny just to let them in one more time, for no apparent reason. Let them keep winning Division 1. Let them win the CCA tournament at Riptide again. Why not?
I proposed that Triggerfish Zone Supremacy be allowed to play in Division 3 after they just won Division 3, so that they could defend their title, but then they dropped out of Ludi before we could give them the chance.
Aww.
So I understand that logic.
Somewhere in the world, wherever Nito is, he just had his heart skip a beat. Yeah.
Poor Nito.
Poor Nito.
Probably shredding up their bracket right now, but I'm sure they'll be fine.
Yeah, my March Madness bracket's just doing okay. Unfortunately, just okay. We're not seeing the crazy ones.
Look, you're not playing for money, are you?
I'm not.
You're just playing for pride. I'm assuming.
I'm playing for pride. I'm playing for, hey guys, I got the #1 spot of all the friends here.
That means something. That to me, that's more valuable than money, because pride, even though it is a sin, will stick with you forever, where money will not, unfortunately.
Depending on what you believe, even after quote unquote forever.
Pride, you
yeah.
can take pride with you into the afterlife.
Exactly. You can't take the money though. But yeah, I think introductions aside, I think it might be a good idea to just ask a little bit more about your background here with both IPL and the grander scene, and also just kind of clue some of the collegiate members of our community in on what they can expect outside of just collegiate only events, right? Because typically what we see with a lot of CCA teams is, with some exceptions, of course, they like to play in CCA League, sometimes a circuit, sometimes other events every semester, but they don't dip their toes that often into other tournaments. So can you, to our collegiate folks here, explain what the hell even is an IPL?
So, if you Google IPL, you'll get the answer to that. IPL is the Indian Premier League. It is the top cricket league, I believe, in India, founded in 2007. We at Splatoon IPL hope to do is overtake the Indian Premier League as the predominant acronym of IPL and make competitive Splatoon the best thing to ever happen on the planet. So that's what IPL is. We are I cringe at saying the industry leader of competitive Splatoon in the West, but that is kind of what we strive to be. We want you to, when you think about competitive Splatoon, we want you to think of IPL first, and all the things that we tried to do with that. So that's just a brief synopsis of what IPL is. I would be shocked if somebody didn't know what IPL is and they're listening to this podcast. Like, you have to be pretty niche to be so locked in to the college scene, but also so invested in competitive Splatoon that you'll listen to this podcast and not know what IPL is. But I've been surprised before, so there you go. IPL, the Inkling Performance Laboratories.
College students are very, very interesting sometimes with their knowledge levels.
So when I was in college, so leading up to getting into college, I was a gamer, a quote unquote gamer. I played video games all the time. In college, I had no time for it. So hats off to those of you who play competitive Splatoon while you were in college. I don't know why you chose to do that, but it is a life choice that you certainly made. But most of my gaming started after I graduated and I got like an actual job and kind of settled down in life. So I don't blame college kids for being distracted, even though you are still invested enough to watch a CCA podcast.
Yeah. So kind of IPL acts a little bit different than the CCA because you kind of have a collection of different events that you kind of host and plan. So I kind of want to ask, it's like a central idea or theme that unites all of your different events and tournaments at IPL. Do you have any central philosophy, or is it just kind of being that industry leader as you were talking about?
So the focus of IPL is starting to shift a little bit to react to where the current state of the scene is right now. Before, our mindset was global domination. We want to add as many events as we can. We want to bring in as many new tournaments that we can and try to have like every single box checked as far as like what the competitive scene wants to see. But as we're starting to look at the Sindao calendar and see 30, 40 events taking place every single week, we don't want to be redundant. We don't want to bog down the system, so to speak, and we don't want to just, oh, well, here's just the IPL version of something that already exists. So our philosophy right now is fewer tournaments, but increasing the quality of the tournaments that we have. Neon Whale, if you remember that tournament, not really a thing anymore. Proving Grounds. My baby, I loved Proving Grounds, but it doesn't fit into what competitive Splatoon is right now. Maybe in the future we can find a different way to repurpose it, but there's so many double limb splat zone tournaments that it doesn't make sense to have. Well, here's that, except it's the IPL version of it, which is the same tournament you've played 20 times throughout the week. So our focus right now is let's make low ink and SOS as strong as they can be, and then the other tournaments that people are constantly asking us about, SAC and Super Jump. How can we take those two events and elevate them to a higher level if we're taking the resources from those other tournaments we don't do anymore and put it into those events? So, and I'm not going to break any news here on your podcast, sorry, but there is things in the works specifically for SAC and Super Jump for those two events in particular that we haven't had before. So those two events will be coming out with some changes that we think the entire community will like. And when that happens, you got low ink, and then the next step, SAC, and then the next step, in theory, Super Jump, and then you got our weekly SOS tournament that caters to everybody in some form or fashion. And that we feel like is just 4 tournaments that are only happening once, maybe twice a week. We feel like that's a good core to have. Less tournaments, but higher quality of them. We're also focusing more so on content than what we've ever had before. I look at Splatoon Tourney, which I have on my other monitor right now. I'm watching Facade play Poyo, just because I'm interested in that set. And I love what Splatoon Tourney's doing. They're basically just streaming competitive Splatoon. Not just Ludi sets, but also LAN local sets as well. Maybe I've done some CCA sets in the past. I think that was the case. If not, I wouldn't be surprised if that wouldn't be a thing in the future.
I think they do. Even this season, too, we've had some sets there as well.
Yeah.
So I look at Splatoon Tourney and I think, I wish IPL was just that. It's like, I wish we were just promoting competitive Splatoon in a sense. I like that we have our own tournaments, but the more content that we do, I think the better off we are at promoting competitive Splatoon as a whole to planet Earth, rather than just, here's just the narrow vision of what IPL is trying to do. We brought in the PodCCAst, that used to just be on my channel. That's now on IPL every single week. Episode tomorrow, low ink preview. They started doing YouTube content, the Weekly Ink, which is just a weekly segment where they bring in a different voiceover person every single week and show highlights of tournaments that took place the week prior, both online and at LAN. Part of this partnership with the CCA is that we're starting to stream CCA matches every single Sunday over the course of the season. And also, all the major LAN tournaments are broadcasted on IPL as well. Low Tide City, Riptide, some other things that are in the works but haven't been announced yet. So again, I'm not going to leak them here, but that's what not the leader of IPL, but just this, like the spokesperson of it. That's what I like to see IPL doing, creating more content and pushing out more of the stuff. There's always going to be tournaments, but I like the kind of new direction IPL is kind of going, and is helping to grow the scene as a whole. At least that's our goal.
Yeah, no, I mean, that sounds wonderful. And I mean, definitely as a player myself, I can see some of those changes you've made within the last year and definitely kind of see the different direction the organization's taken. To kind of touch upon something you kind of highlighted there, do you think IPL serves as a good distillation of the entirety of the Western Splatoon scene? And if so, are there any pressures on IPL to kind of be the figurehead of the Western scene and act in a certain way?
Now, you're going to have to rephrase that question because college was 12 years ago for me. I have no idea what distillation means. Is that like an alcohol term?
No, more of just like, do you think it covers like the extent of all the different kind of like extents of the scene? Do you think like it represents a good summary of what the Western scene has to show? Both in like, tournaments, teams, anything of that nature.
I would hope that when somebody looks at IPL, they see that this is what the peak of the competitive scene currently is in the western part of the world, and sees the growth that we are trying to put forward and what competitive Splatoon could be through IPL. Do I think we do everything? Like, there's certainly things you can get elsewhere that you can't get at IPL. And again, that's on us recognizing that we don't need to offer everything. A lot of people, let's use Lowink as an example. Lowink started out as one of the only, it wasn't the only one, and it definitely wasn't the first skill cap tournament, but it's the first skill cap tournament to actually transcend like the realm that it is. It's become the most popular tournament in all of competitive Splatoon. It's no longer the tournament that is the like absolute best entry tournament. Like it's no longer the first tournament you should play in to get into that. That's Little Squid League in my opinion, and they're under a completely different org than us. But it would be stupid of IPL to be like, well, let's just make another LSL the IPL version. No, like that already exists. Dapple Productions does a great job of creating EU events. So we've been working with them, recently coming out with another charity tournament that's going to be taking place in April. But also kind of recognizing like, hey, we should be promoting them with all the things they're accomplishing in the EU scene. As well. So we've been doing like some collaborations with some of the other bigger orgs, and we're not afraid to tell somebody like, hey, if you're looking for something and it's not at IPL, here's where you can find it. You know, it might not benefit us initially, but you will eventually come back to us through those other events as well. So we're kind of growing with the rest of the scene. I don't know if that answers your question, but
No,
that's the
yeah,
answer
I
you're
mean,
gonna get anyways.
no, it makes sense.
So you did mention low ink. I feel like it would be a good idea to talk a little bit more about it, because even though maybe not anymore, it's always the best entry, you know, into maybe the grander Splatoon scene if you're just starting out, you know. I don't know anyone who's never played a low ink that's never gotten low ink banned, but also never played a different Splatoon tournament personally. But so like for a collegiate player that's never touched low ink, they've thought about it. But they want to have their team play in a upcoming low ink. Could you like maybe almost like sell it to them, or like what will be the benefit to them going into it, even if they necessarily don't have the best turnout potentially?
Now, I can't talk about low ink on this specific date without mentioning this fact. Tomorrow is my team's 5-year anniversary of the day that we won low ink.
Oh my gosh.
And I've grown a beard since then, so that's how much life has changed for me. But low ink has been around. When I was a player in low ink, we played in it for about a year before we won it, and we didn't even play in the first low ink. Like, low ink's been a thing for a couple of years before my team won it, and that's been 5 years since then. So it's been a tournament that's been around for a long time. Now, I say it's not the best entry-level tournament to go to, even though it was in the past. There's still a lot of value for anybody who's not banned from low ink to play in low ink. We see a lot of teams that start off in their first low ink go 0-6 in the Swiss stage, or 1-5, and they don't qualify for Sunday. But they meet other teams that are in the similar skill level as them, and they become scrim partners with them. We encourage people to reach out. Hey, find somebody that you enjoyed playing against in this tournament, DM that captain and be like, hey, you want to become scrim buddies? And let's set up like a little scrim date, and you get better with them. For my team, it was this team called the Crustacean Crusaders. I remember the first tournament where we just didn't get completely blown out of the water by another team, and we grew with them, and we've played with them all the way up through like the top of SAC when we were competing in that. So there's still a lot of value even for teams that aren't like threatening to win low ink to play in low ink, because you get to meet other people within the community and grow from there. So that would be my pitch to that. Is it's a fun tournament. You'll get a lot of attention from playing in it. It might annoy higher level players that this tournament gets more attention than any other, but that's because we as staff put a lot of effort into it. We spent a lot of time doing verification, answering help desk 24/7 over the course of the month. being very patient when people ask us why their opponent called Bye hasn't joined the room yet or responded to their chats. The PodCCAst was basically built around Low Ink, and we spent a lot of time talking to the people that are in Low Ink. We invite them onto the show to talk specifically about how they felt their team did, or what their thoughts on like a certain play or something like that took place in Low Ink. So we've been able to connect really well with our players, and it's become, I hesitate to say tight-knit community, but it's become its own kind of thing that is slowly starting to branch out to the world beyond low level as well. So why should you play in Low Ink? Because you're going to have a fun time, you're going to meet other people, and eventually you'll get banned from it before you win it, because no college team has outright won Low Ink yet.
Oh, they've gotten somewhat close, I believe. I think third place is the best we've seen. Second? You know, Oma? I know DF knows. I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I've definitely know that we've seen way more bans than we've seen even podium placements, even flirting with a podium placement.
The
We've also
closest
seen...
team I can recall was ITAP. The most viewed clip on the IPL channel is them losing in semifinals. And I hate to bring it up because that's the thing that gets brought up every time they think about it, and it's not really fair to them. But ITAP was a great Low Ink team. Big Fat Sea Cows, when they were eligible, they had a couple of opportunities, just couldn't really get the job done. But they were playing in Low Ink when it had like 200 teams. So you could make the argument that they had the best Low Ink run of any college team. Former UCSD players have won Low Ink, but that was after they graduated, and it wasn't like a full CCA roster. So you could play that card. Night Sharks were really good as well, but we haven't seen them as of late. But when the Night Sharks played, they were a top 10 team for sure.
Yeah. I got kind of on that topic. We've seen a lot more collegiate teams just playing in Low Ink in general these last 2 years. I remember I used to kind of even keep a sheet about it, and I quickly got overwhelmed with the entire nature of kind of tracking everything. I think kind of both from like, head of a staff on the tournament and such. Do you have any comments or trends you can talk about with the collegiate teams there, or like anything noteworthy of like how difficult they are to seed or anything like that?
Well, seeding in Low Ink is a whole different conversation. They're not difficult to seed in Low Ink. I can promise you that. No team is that difficult. Let me kind of give you an example of a narrative about Low Ink that a lot of us have had for a long time, but turned out not to really be true. So there's been a lot of annoyance among TOs that do open events and do LAN events that Low Ink teams are too afraid to play in open events, and Low Ink teams never leave low-level events until they get banned, and they purposely sandbag themselves so they don't get banned. And that's a narrative that I've kind of agreed with for a good chunk of time, until I actually just sat down and be like, okay, well, let me just look at the numbers and see if this is true or not. So there was a Low Ink towards the end of last year where I took every single team that signed up, and I looked at their history to see, had they played in an open event in the past 2 months? And for the vast majority of the teams, the answer was yes, they had played in open events. And the teams that didn't, a good chunk of them were Little Squid League and below. So for them, playing in Low Ink is kind of like playing in an open level event for them, because that is their next step up. So there's all the narrative that's always been about Low Ink teams, just on my own research I found, wasn't true. And I would think that same kind of narrative, and this is definitely a narrative among TOs as well, is that CCA teams hide in the CCA and they don't step out of that comfort zone at all. I don't really buy into that narrative. I haven't seen the data. You obviously have, which is great. And another kind of tricky thing is you have no idea who's a college team and who's not. Like, it's one thing when you have VCU, Big Fat Sea Cow in your name, but when you're just the Big Fat Sea Cows, like there's nothing that would indicate that you are at least above the age of 13, until I get into VC with you and I'm like, oh, okay, like now I understand what's going on here. So it's hard to track like who specifically is and isn't just at an eyeball glance. But like you said, we do have a lot of college teams that do play low ink, that do play in SOS, and they play in a bunch of other events as well. And here's another thing that TOs in general need to understand. If CCA teams just want to play in the CCA, that's okay. Who cares? Like, it's their comfort level that they want to stay in their own little environment and just grow through that. That's perfectly fine. The cool thing is that there is an environment for these teams to play in. I argue for everybody that comes after me and says, "Oh, your low ink teams aren't playing in other events." I'm sitting here and telling them they wouldn't even be in competitive Splatoon without low ink. If they didn't have a low level and they just played in SOS and they went 0-3 every single night, they're going to go to a different game. I'm assuming, now I haven't seen the data, but I'm assuming there are a lot of college teams that are only in competitive Splatoon because they found out about it through somebody in their college. Hey, you play Splatoon. Do you want to come play on my college team? Wait, people actually play this with their friends, with each other? That's a thing? Yeah, like that's a cool thing. And I don't like the narrative of other TOs being like, well, they're scared because they don't want to leave other things. No, that's not the freaking point of the thing. I almost got a little feisty right there.
No, it's all good. And
my son is
right on
right
the
behind
money.
me. But I'm passionate about this because I hear this bullcrap a lot when it comes to the low ink, and I'm sure you guys get it as well. If CCA teams want to stay in the CCA, that's a wonderful thing. If they want to branch out, they know how to branch out. Like, CCA teams know IPL exists. They know Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer Cup exists. They know how to work Sendow.inc. They know what everything is out there. And it's cool that there are options for them that are out there. But if they don't want to take advantage of it, that's really cool too. And that's a narrative we all have to be okay with.
Yeah, and you're right on the money too. With our yearly annual survey we do, the SOC survey, like just having this community is like the top reason most of our players play and such. It's like, while there are some teams, like VCU, some of the RIT teams that do kind of branch out and such. Like a lot of the teams just like the community that are built here and don't feel the necessary reason to. But a lot of them also do kind of get stuck a little bit and not know where to go. Since like a lot of these teams are brand new, like little Timmy's first Splatoon team as well. So, kind of leading them to IPL has always kind of been something that we've been wanting to do. But
well, we're more than happy to take anybody that wants to come into our events. We're never gonna. Well, that's not true. We definitely do turn people away because there's a lot of jackasses in this community. But as long as you're not a jackass, we'll always take you. And if you are a college team and you want to improve, the one thing I would say is play in as many tournaments as you can, get your ass kicked as many times as you can, learn from it, and you'll get better. But on the flip side is like you also need to study and do homework and get a part-time job somewhat related to your field so that your college degree actually means something when you graduate in this crazy world that we live in right now. So like the grind to get better requires a lot of extra free time that maybe college students don't have, which I completely understand. But it's nice to have resources. And as much as we gripe about the oversaturation of the scene right now, you can't deny there are at least a lot of resources for people that want to take advantage of them.
And I think we see that through a lot of different tournaments too. Like there are there's teams that dedicate themselves almost entirely to low ink, where you almost have that low ink community, right? But then the same is true for like LSL, the same is true for FTIU. So many tournaments really. And I think for a little while that was almost true of stuff like Fountain of Dreams, for instance, before that kind of took a little bit of the wayside. So like you'll find just different groups of teams dedicating themselves to different tournaments and leagues. Even if it's just a little bit more of a casual thing for them, it's something that they're trying to either get the win on or they just enjoy playing in. So I think, again, like what Krona was saying too, you're right on the money with that assessment. Even if it's more of a comfort space for them, it's how they're choosing to spend their extra time, especially when you're as busy as a college student. You might be working a part-time job. You may have like 12 exams. That's a really dramatic number tomorrow. But just, the life of a college student can be crazy. And ideally, you're hopefully also being social outside of the immediate Splatoon world too, right? So you're just getting that full, complete college experience. And yeah, I mean, completely agree on all fronts there. But when it comes to the competitive scene, you were starting to make a point kind of like this earlier, almost on like a way of exposure therapy sometimes for either if it's low ink or other tournaments. When it comes to stuff like SOS, for instance, like let's say you have a team that they keep getting Lantern Bracket, or they're afraid of maybe always getting Lantern Bracket or something like that. Do you think that types of exposure, almost like exposure therapy like that, are worthwhile for collegiate teams, kind of exposing them to other play styles, just even other people outside the immediate collegiate Splatoon community? And
So,
yeah.
well, not to cut you off, but just as you were talking, I was kind of formulating the question or the answer in my head. With Loink specifically, and this will tie into your kind of question, teams will usually have like one strategy that works really well for them because they're playing against other low ink teams that don't really know how to beat it. So it's like, okay, well, I can just keep doing this one thing over and over again because it's unbeatable. And then you play in a tournament with teams above the low ink skill cap, and they show your flaws and they make you realize, oh, okay, this opening or this playstyle we have has a obvious weakness. Now it takes time to figure that out, and it takes effort. It takes VOD reviewing. Practice doesn't make you better. Perfect practice makes you better. Like if you're just scrimming nonstop, you're not going to get any better. If you're scrimming with a purpose of identifying a weakness and getting better at that, then you will get better. Iron sharpens iron, and that's a good thing that you can get out of SOS, because you are going to get people that are like little Squid League skill level and people that are, well, Poyos winning the last couple of SOSs. They're a Div X team that just beat Black Lotus, even though I just saw them lose on Lodi tonight. But that just gives you the wide scope of things. Eventually, you're going to run into somebody that's going to expose your weaknesses and expose your flaws. And if you have enough time to kind of figure out what it is that other team did that exposed what you do wrong and what you can do to improve, then yeah, you're going to improve faster than everybody else. But again, that's the higher up the ladder you go, the more time you have to put into it. But again, that's kind of the value to SOS. And Low Ink and Little Squid League and in anything for anybody that wants to improve.
Yeah, I think kind of building off a little bit on that, we kind of, for those teams that do want to kind of reach out outside the collegiate scene, we do kind of see them try and then sometimes get a little bit dejected from this. Do you think this idea of like exposure theory kind of plays into that these teams are too used to the collegiate scene and some of its idiosyncrasies? And do you think they kind of just need to kind of push through and try to, like, not to say fight real teams and such, but fight some more variety of those teams that are beyond kind of the collegiate restriction?
So here's the disconnect that I have between top level players that have reached the top of the mountain that will say something like, well, you just got to keep getting your butt kicked and eventually and grind and all that. And you, if you really want it, you work hard enough, you'll reach the top. No, there's this thing called God-given talent. And not everybody has it. Some of you could work as hard as you want on anything in life. There's going to be some jackass that's just naturally better than you, who does work hard, mind you. I'm not discrediting the hard work of anybody, but the competitive Splatoon community is a pyramid for a reason. The higher you climb up, the less people are at the top. And at some point, the amount of hard work you put into it doesn't have the same kind of payoff as somebody else, which is why I never really agree when some top level player makes that narrative. It's like, you don't realize, like, you are different from everybody else. Like, you are just naturally talented, and that allowed you to kind of combine with the hard work that you put into it. So if somebody wants to, if your goal is to, like, get banned from Low Ink and like become one of the top Div 1 teams in the CCA, then yes, you're going to have to go through that route. But if your goal is to just have fun with your friends, then who gives a shit what tournament you're actually playing in, or what, like, how much effort you're putting into these things, or how much you actually care. Like, that's the beauty of all these different skill cap tournaments that we have in competitive Splatoon right now, is that no matter what you want to get out of the community, it's there for you. If teams don't like playing in SOS, nobody at IPL is going to have their feelings hurt. If several people have come to me and said they don't like low ink, or like it's not a tournament for them, I'm not going to try to change their mind. Like, that's perfectly okay for anyone to say they don't want to play in my tournament. If they don't want to be there, I don't want them there either. And that's not like a get out of my tournament kind of thing. It's like, I want to find the people that do want to play in Loic, and I want to make sure that they are aware of what it is and how to sign up and all of that stuff and the value they can get out of it. But there's so many different things people get out of this community. And when there's this disconnect between, oh, well, Loic teams are scared to move up in these other events. Well, there are also a lot of Loic teams that are in their mid-30s and have kids and just want to hang out and have fun and play this game at a more competitive level than just the open anarchy mode of Clan Blitz on Mahi Resort, which might be in your map pool, by the way. I haven't really checked that much into it. But yeah, that's the thing. Again, it just harks back to whatever the personal player's comfort level is. And we, from the top levels and down to the bottom level, need to stop caring about what other people want out of this community and think everybody wants to be the next FT win, because that's definitely not the case. But the resources are there for anybody to get whatever they want out of this community. That's what's so great about it.
So, I mean, kind of building off of that almost, and sort of starting to take us, full circle here with this conversation. How does, like, IPL really try to seek to innovate and cultivate that sort of community almost, and just, like, look for the best from the players, look to just keep things growing to the best of the ability of the scene?
So, like I said, I'm not going to leak anything, but I will say, that's kind of what we're looking at with revamping SAC and Super Jump, which hopefully we have some announcements of that stuff going forward. But again, continuing just to grow. And for Loic specifically, like I said, it used to be something and it's not that anymore. I think it just comes down to us as staff realizing that. Like, it never was our intent for Loic to become a monthly low-level major, but we had to acknowledge that's what it is right now. So let's just put all of our brain power into making sure it's the best version of that it can be, while still staying humble to the roots and providing things for anybody signing up for Loic that doesn't have an opportunity to win it. Did that answer your question? I just went off on another tangent. I got heated a couple of questions back. I just started rambling.
No, you're all good. That definitely was getting there. It's just, I really liked your comment though about how, like, almost the community took in stuff like low ink, or like how it just evolved naturally just as the community sort of itself changed too, because even if there was an initial intent for it, it did turn into either something else or something maybe a little bit different than expected. And I mean, as TOs, as community leaders, as even on the production side to a certain extent with your storylines, you have to kind of adapt to that, because that's, like, when it comes to these storylines of teams, whether it's stuff that Ludi Tonight's putting out, whether it's just, the monthly low ink stream or the weekly SOS stream or our CCA League match streams, we're telling stories through all of this. It's like, well, last week a team might have just barely lost like their SOS bracket, right? And that was streamed. But then coming into the next week, they're getting really close matches again, so just taking stuff like that into consideration. So I think just that community feedback and staying attentive, like, completely agree. That's really important.
Yeah, I was just watching earlier this week, Black Lotus getting upset 5-0'd by Frick P. And for any other match you look at it, and that's just a 5-0, it's like, okay, that wasn't a competitive set. And it wasn't, but it's still like a major storyline because we know who Black Lotus is after seeing them several times in other tournaments and knowing the significance of them getting 5-0'd in that moment. And that's the important of podcasts as well. Not just what I'm doing, but what you guys are doing as well, telling the stories of the CCA. And your main audience might be other people who already know what those stories are, but there's still going to be people that are going to tune in because they appreciate other people acknowledging what it is that they're doing. That's really why the podcast became successful, if you want to call it that, is because I started talking about other people, and those people tuned in and were like, oh my gosh, this guy's talking about me. Like, nobody's ever talked about what I did in Little Squid League before because nobody cared. But yeah, but when people get that recognition, it gets them excited, and other people hear that stories and they want to be a part of it as well. So yeah, what you guys are doing, just telling the story of what's actually going on in these events, it means something to at least one person, and then it just kind of takes off from there.
I don't disagree at all. And I think with that kind of brings our conversation mostly to a close. Did you have anything you wanted to ask us, Popgun, by chance? Any lingering thoughts?
No, but
No.
I do have a couple of shout outs. First off, OmaZen, thank you for coming on to my podcast on
it was a
Monday.
pleasure.
If anyone in chat hasn't seen that, it's still up on the IPL. Eventually, it'll be up on the IPL YouTube as well. And Krona, I got to give you a big thanks as well, because you're the one who DMs me every week with the. So I do a weekly recap segment on my podcast, and I always talk about the CCA, and that's because Krona DMs me, as Magic would call it, a press release every week, which is essentially what that is. Like, hey, here's a recap of the CCA. The only thing I got to complain about, though, is some of these teams have really long and really stupid names. Like, and some of these schools have 50 different teams. So it's like the University of Texas Longhorn Red, White, and Blue Peanut Butter Banana team, and they're like a Division 6 team or something like that. Like, can we get these college teams? These are college kids. I know they want to be creative, but can we narrow this down? You're the University of Texas Longhorn team. That's it. That's all we need. That's what I need as somebody who's getting older and more annoyed at everything in life. Shorter college team names is the way to go for me.
I think we should take a...
Sorry. Wait, no.
Go ahead, Oma.
Yeah,
no,
I was making a small comment. I think we struck gold initially with stuff like ITAP. It's just an acronym. It's a really easy acronym.
See, that's the thing. My expectation got set too high with ITAP back in the early 2020s to where it is right now. If ITAP came out now, it'd be a breath of fresh air. But yeah, we started off, we got spoiled right off the bat. Purdue ruined everything.
Oops, as we typically do. Where are you going to go at, Krona?
I was going to say we all should take a page from Cutstown's book and name all of our teams just Spoon.
Spoon?
Oh, yeah.
Spoon 1,
Yeah.
Spoon 2.
Yeah, no, just Spoon. Fan favorite Spoon.
You could go the Arrows clan route and just name yourselves after elements until you run out of elements, and then you just call yourself Red and come up with colors after that. There we go. University of
How about
Texas
Austin
Lightning
does?
team. There we go.
With Daybreak, Nightfall, and Equinox. But I digress.
Yes.
That's
I
good.
remember those sets of names for sure.
There was another team from Penn State that I just have to mention too.
Oh,
They're
no.
named Fish. The whole gimmick is they add a fish every CCA season or major event they play in. So, they kind of struck gold initially too. It's like, okay, PSU Fish, cool, we get the point, right? And then it's like, no, we have to elaborate again. I don't think you heard the first time. It's fish, and then it's fish. And it just keeps going on from there.
Yeah. And there's 3 or 4 Penn State teams, aren't there?
There's
I
quite
know
a few
there's
now.
several of them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can't just have one Penn State Nittany Lion team. So yeah, there you go. Fish, fish, fish. Whatever. So be it.
So be it.
You're Penn State in my eyes, even though you can't have that.
Nope, not allowed. But yeah, once again, thank you, Popgun, for letting us have you on the podcast today, and I mean also from my angle too. Thank you for letting me show my face on the podcast. That was honestly like a little bit of a I don't know, a bucket list item for me. So it was really fun to do that, and glad that we could have this great collaboration.
Yeah, it's cool to be on here. I like going on to other places because you guys ask me questions that get me riled up. And I get more riled up on other people's streams than my own sometimes. So it's cool to kind of vent a little bit. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. We love it. Without further ado, we're going to go ahead and close off the podcast here. So once again, Popgun, thank you for letting us have you. And we will go ahead and move to our final segment.
Cool.
All right.
I'm awkwardly leave.
All right. And that was Popgun, everyone, from IPL and also the PodCCAst. And thank you all for watching us and letting us have him as well. And Krona, I don't think there's too many other things to discuss here necessarily, but I do think there are a few loose ends potentially.
I mean, mainly just watch the stream list when it comes out. Probably, obviously, soon. And then just keep an eye on stuff because I always harp on this every single season, but it's true. This is the best time to catch all the action and to get to the tiniest grain of detail for any of these collegiate matches. Because at this point, every match means the world for group standings. So, if another team in your group goes 4-1 over another team, that can spin like 3 different possibilities. So it's just a great time to kind of get your nose on the grindstone, or whatever that phrase is, and just to keep an eye out for anything.
Yeah, I mean, we were really
Anything I
hitting
missed
that
there?
home. No, we were hitting that home, what you just put out there earlier, too, whether it's certain sets or foreseen matches like what Red Embers and Towson Tiger Sharks may have ahead of them. And just like, I mean, honestly, so many of the divisions. And this league season's particularly interesting in that we don't have the reschedule week we've had the past couple of years. So
yeah. Then coming from circuit, and I don't get me started. I could spend a whole episode talking about it all, but I don't know. Maybe we'll do that in a couple coming weeks.
we may, yeah.
But yeah, so we're hoping to have an episode next week. We'll see, and then we'll go with some playoff coverage and maybe have a team interview or two. There's definitely some teams on my radar that I'd like to talk to about the regular seasons. What about you, Oma?
No, I agree. We've taken a little bit of a break from that so far with our coverage of this season, but that's mostly just coming from wanting to change stuff up a bit, maybe provide even some additional resources to you all. So that's always fine and dandy, but definitely looking forward to getting to speak to some more teams moving into the future. I mean, just especially with certain developments within Circuit, there's been so much that's happened just this whole academic year, and seeing a lot of kind of almost like capstone moments or just like big finale moments for certain groups is something I definitely want to keep my eyes open for.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, playoffs are always fun to watch too, and just kind of the storylines and like not even if a team wins or anything, just kind of what they achieved the regular season and what it has. This is the spring semester. We're going into the off season, and a lot can change in those coming months and stuff as well. But again, I'm getting on my soapbox. I'll try to keep it for time and stuff, but again, keep an eye on stuff. And there's some absolutely fantastic legit Splatoon ahead of everyone.
There is for sure. Just one full week left of the league season. Of course, we also have our week 4 weekend ahead of us as well, I believe. But yeah, finals are just around the corner, which, I mean, both within the playoff sphere and also for many of you who are still in university. Fortunately, that's not me anymore, for better or worse.
Lucky dog.
Yeah, lucky me. I have to work instead. That's... Yay. sobbing and crying.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you, Krona, for joining me today on the CCA
course.
podcast. It's always a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure. For those of you who don't know, we had to drag Krona away from Xenoblade Chronicles X release date.
Yes.
I'm so sorry.
Yes.
So I also want to
How
let
dare
you
you.
get ahead and get away as soon as you can here, so that you can maybe get back on that if you so desire.
Yep. That'll be my Switch status for the next 8 hours or so. I'm not that tired.
All good. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. It was a lovely podcast, and we will catch you all next week. See you all later.
Bye-bye.